I'll talk like this. Will you? Oh, hello. Can you hear me? Or I want to stand over here. I want to stand over here. Take it with. Hello. Can you hear me? Hello. You guys haven't used this before. But yeah, I love Apple. It's so much easier if you want to share photos. You can talk as long as you want. Yeah. Start me.
I'll introduce you. Are we good? Hello. Good afternoon. Everybody sit down. All right, get started. Yes, something.
Thank you.
In the back. I'm looking at the Powder Mountain table. I'm kidding. All right. So, as many of you know who have been here before, this is our B Street lecture series put on by Ogden. I know it's a clever name. You can tell all of us, Ogden Avalanche, are creatives. We named it the lecture series. Anyone that goes to lectures for fun, guys do. So we've been doing this for 5 years. So that's pretty cool. Many of you have been to every one.
For everyone. No one.
Oh, Nick Dye. Yeah. Yeah. I think I've been. Well,
This is my first one.
this is Han time. So he's a virgin. Oh. Now I'm off. But this, so the return of Hungover Friday, folks, at the ski areas. So don't get Fridays because most of your ski patrollers over. Anyways, without further ado, Hans is going to talk about accidents and factors to kick off this 5th year. And it's a 5-part series. So we'll see you for the 4 Thursdays after this. Cool. Hans.
Hey guys, welcome to the skiing today. Yes, it is good, and it's going to get better. I'm going to talk about the snow. I'm going to talk about some of the accidents that have happened, some recent. I'm going to talk about my evolution in snow science and avalanche forecasting, and tell you a few stories. Hopefully, learn and see some videos of some pretty cool places around the world that I was lucky enough to visit and be a part of. But the place I love most is right here, Ogden, Utah. Amazing place. Best snow in the world. And you can see from right here, it's snowing right now. Up at Snow Basin, we've gotten 40 inches and 2 inches of SWE over the past week, 20 and about 1 inch of SWE. And what do you guys got up there at Powder? About the same? Yeah, how much snow have you guys gotten? About 40 inches the past week? Yes. And it's only gonna get better, okay? It's only gonna get better. My audio skills aren't that, or my video skills aren't that awesome. I'm gonna show you some things that I like to look at in the mornings. And for many of you people that live here in Utah, we're lucky we have the University of Utah, and they have created these plumes, which we really like looking at. Sexy plumes here. You can see water and snow equivalent right here. So the water is the top one, and that is showing Snow Basin. And I'm sorry, I'm just focusing on Snow Basin because that's where my bookmarks are. Up to 5 inches of water through this storm. That's looking good. I usually underreport that. I don't believe the higher ends. I usually drop off 20%, but we're definitely looking over another 50 inches coming up. So that's really, really good. So recently at Snow Basin, over the weekend, we had about 15 inches and we were able to open some terrain. And, you know, we do it piece by piece and we have gates, we close gates, we open gates. This weekend, we decided we weren't able to get the tram open. So we kept No Name closed, but we opened up on Monday some terrain into No Name, and we did have an event, and we had someone go out of bounds and enter into our Hell's Canyon area. And I'll show you a photo of that right here. And this event, pretty good photo of Hell's Canyon. Do we have a pointer or anything like that? What's that? Okay, finger's good. Up here, this ridge, if you follow it all the way up, that's our ski area boundary. And people like to go into the upper zones there and ski some really good terrain. You can see it's all avalanche terrain and it funnels down into here. We call this area the cemetery. Unfortunately, we've had several deaths over the past 26 years that this terrain has been easily accessible from people. So on Monday, people went out of bounds and were traversing the upper start zones and getting closer and closer to the sweet spot. And I'll show you here. So this is that upper spot up top there. You can see the avalanche right here. A lot of people were traversing over and going into the trees. And our one snowboarder decided to go a little bit further. And we don't know if he was heading towards the trees or where he was going, but he triggered an avalanche at the top of the slide path and went for a fairly large and significant slide. This area had slid earlier in the season. We had a persistent weak layer problem that got taken out in early December, and we had 55 inches with 7 inches of water that took out our persistent weak layer. But 27 days of drought came through after that, and then this first storm sort of got people excited about going straight into the backcountry again. And unfortunately, this individual kicked off a major slide. One of our guests saw a powder cloud and alerted it to ski patrol. And so we were unsure if there was someone in there. So we decided to close our gates, and that's what we do. We do due diligence. We close our terrain so that our workers don't get caught in there if it happens to be a rescue. We had a UAC forecaster along with our head ski area ski patroller, Corey Cruzy, for the day. They were up there and they looked at it and they noticed that there was only one track going in and no track going out. So due diligence, closed the terrain. We called a helicopter in and we looked at it, and fortunately, through the helicopter and looking out the window, we noticed that the individual that created this slide had arrested on the bed surface and was able to get out, which is a very, very, very good outcome. So that happened this past Monday. So this talk is about accidents and things that happen, and I'd like to just share with you some of my personal experiences over the years, my evolution into ski patrolling. I call myself a snow enthusiast, and I'm sort of like a ski bum disguised as a ski patroller, I guess. But I started in Colorado at a little place called Eldora, and I don't know anybody who's ever been there. Anybody skied over there? Yeah. Small hill, pretty fun. Yeah, so for you guys that haven't been there, it's continental. It's on the western slope of the Rockies, or eastern slope of the Rockies. So it's high, it's cold, and it has a rain shadow, snow shadow, so it doesn't get nearly as much snow as a lot of other areas. It's close to Boulder, which is a bonus because it's a party town. Very, very windy place. One of the lowest places in the Continental Divide is Rollins Pass. It's right there, and the winds just funnel right through there. Great place to learn as a ski patroller. Small, doesn't have a huge amount of avalanche terrain, but it does have a little bit of terrain. And so I started my ski patrol path there as a volunteer my first year, and got my skills up, sort of dealing with people that get hurt. And a lot of people come from Kansas and Nebraska in jeans and try and ski those slopes, and they're pretty icy. But a guy named Matt Phillips, he was a ski patroller friend of mine. He'd worked at Berthoud as a snow safety director, and he liked backcountry skiing. So he took me under his wing, and he took me outside the ski area boundary for my first really ever experience out in the backcountry, side country. And we started going through the trees, having a really good time. And he stopped. He said, "Okay, now it's time to put on the beacon." And I'm like, "Beacon? What the hell is that?" So he put it on, or gave it to me. I put it on. And I'm like, "Okay, so what's the deal? I don't know how to use this." He's like, "That's okay. I know how to use it." And I'm like, "So what's the deal?" He's like, "You go first." I'm like, "I get to go first? This is the best thing ever, right?" So we went and skied Lost Lake Headwall, fun little zone, went down, and I was like, "This is unbelievable." But being a skier that likes to push the boundaries and have fun, a few days later, it was a day off, I went skiing. I was like, "You know what? I'm going to go back out there." And I didn't have a beacon. I didn't have a partner. I didn't have anything other than just the memory of having a really good time out there. And I was deciding, I'm not going to hit that steep shot that we went into, but I will ski around it. Went in there. Great skiing. Fun time. Probably did 2 or 3 laps. The next day, I went in there again. There was only one difference. There was just a little bit of wind. I came in there, skied through the trees, came to a pitch, and then there was a 3-foot crown and probably a D2.5, 3 that had crossed a lake that I was going to cross myself. And it was like, holy shit, what's going on here? I didn't know anything. The only thing I knew that the skiing was a little different. Then I did a little bit of research, and I found out that was an active avalanche path. And a few years earlier, a snowshoer had died in that area. So that was sort of my come to Jesus moment. It's like, okay, what am I doing? Why am I in the backcountry? What do I need to do to get some skills? So I decided to take a course and do what a lot of people do, get a course and have some fun in the backcountry. And the next thing I did was I became a pro, started spending time learning about the skills. And the skills I learned at Eldora were fairly minimal. It's terrain. The mountains there are huge. I think the safest time to go skiing is in the spring when you get an ice at the track. It gets kind of warm again, then it freezes. Then that's your chance to go and hit some of the bigger lines that they have out there. So I was in the Front Range for 4 years, and then I came here to Utah and started patrolling at Snow Basin when they put in the new lifts, and that's 25, 26 years ago. They put in the gondolas, the high-speed quad, and the tram, opening up the terrain into Strawberry and into No Name, and so some pretty significant avalanche terrain. And that first year was a drought. We had something similar to what we have right now. It was very, very dry. The snowpack, there was only snow at about 7,500 feet and above. The whole valley was dry, and we didn't open Snow Basin until mid-January. First storm was sort of similar to what we're seeing right now. Very, very large, 3, 4, 5 feet. All of us rookies, because Snow Basin had expanded, they decided to hire 20 people that year. And so we had 20 brand new rookies at a place like Snow Basin trying to mitigate and learn about avalanches. So my first ever route, I was with a guy named Mike Hansen, shooting cracks, avalanches. I'm like, what the hell are we doing here? Traversing onto 28-degree slopes, cracks. We threw one shot in a place called Powderhound Bowl, and my partner kick turned, and then the avalanche was about 4 feet deep and took out the shot and went down into the bottom of the bowl and then went off. And I was just thinking to myself, you know, if that kick turn had kicked off the slide and he had gotten caught in it, he would have been in the avalanche with that bomb going off. 2 days later, I was lucky enough to go up onto John Paul, and that was going to be the first ever control work in that terrain for the first time. Operationally, there was 4 of us. Guy that we all know, you guys at Powder Mountain love him, Marcus Waite was there, Mike Hansen, and Tom Leonard. Tom Leonard was the patrol director at the time, and awesome guy and pretty smart. And I'd never been on a route with Tom before. We got into some flats and we threw our first shot. I saw Tom walk over or ski over and grab a tree. And I was like, I think I should go grab a tree. That shot went off, and we were on the flats. We didn't see much. He sort of threw it as far as he could into the woods. And then we heard on the radio, what the hell are you guys doing up there? The triangles are going, which are the men's and women's downhills. JP Face is going. Patrol chutes are going. So that one shot, that first day, there was probably a connected 700 or 800 meter or more crown that went around the mountain. And it was extremely destructive. And that was my sort of intro to avalanche world at Snow Basin. Pretty unbelievable. Really lucky to be there at that time, but super dangerous. And I just sort of just like, oh my God, what have I got myself into? So that was an amazing time. And we did have a lot of gates back then, and we closed a lot of terrain a lot of the time. I can't remember who I was talking to. Was it Corey? We would have to close John Paul Lift because we didn't have enough skiers back in the day. It would snow so hard that we would actually get avalanches. Patrollers were going out the door, skiing as much and as fast as they could, creating slides, but we couldn't keep on top of it. So we had to close terrain because of that. So because I really enjoyed skiing and I enjoyed learning about snow, we have an exchange program with Turoa in New Zealand. And I was really fortunate enough to be part of that. So I went to New Zealand and started that first year. So I was doing Never Summers in 1999. Got over there and I was like, what is this mountain I'm getting myself into? So my next mountain I worked at was Turoa, and I'll tell you about the weather there and the snowpack. It's about a 3,000 meter peak on the North Island of New Zealand, and it just is a weather magnet. It just creates weather, grabs weather, and it gets a lot of wind. It's unbelievably unforgiving, and it is really icy. Rime ice comes in there and grabs it, and just you will get overnight, you can get literally feet of rime ice on lifts, and it also makes incredibly hard bed surfaces that are like panes of glass, and it's a continental snowpack, or excuse me, maritime snowpack. So you'll get weeks of storm sometime that'll shut things down for 7, 8, 10 days. And many of you guys may have seen this, but I have an avalanche from my third or fourth year there where we were heli bombing. And it's one of the larger avalanches. You know, I thought I'd seen avalanches in Utah, but then getting up on that mountain, unbelievable sizes of avalanches with huge consequences. So let's see if I can find that here. Well, I might have to describe it, but try and show it here before this is over. Can't see it on my screen. All right, I can't screen, sorry. So we threw that shot at the summit there. That first avalanche step down, that would have taken out and killed everybody in here. So this avalanche goes on for 5 minutes. So it starts off as a sick slash and goes into almost like a lahar at the. It just runs for almost. You can see these cliffs right there. It'll take. Crowns were over 16 feet high, and the connection of the top of it was over 1 kilometer wide. So it just keeps going. That's 5,000 vert.
Where is this located?
The North Island of New Zealand on Mount Ruapehu, Turoa ski. This is the glacier run that we call. So I was lucky enough to be the skier on this run. My snow safe Murray Brown threw the shot, and then Dedham Stewart, he's like, you know what? I think I'll just bring a camera, and so that's why we have it on video here. So Kiwis are crazy. Let me tell you that much. It snows 2 to 5 centimeters, and they are flinging themselves off cliffs. And they also disregard all avalanche warnings. So unfortunately, lots of the times we have to close the terrain. The North Island, where I was here, Wellington and Auckland are the closest big cities, and Mount Ruapehu is right in the middle. It's got 3 ski fields, Wakapapa, Turoa, and Takino, and you can traverse from one to the other. But the North Island party crew likes to go there. They like to go crazy at night, party, because the bars stay open until 4 o'clock in the morning. So you'll see them, if you're there, you'll see them at 4, but you'll see them in line with a Red Bull and vodka or whatever, ready to go, and then they'll fling themselves off cliffs. So I saw the biggest avalanches of my life at Mount Ruapehu and had a little bit more respect for snow because of that. Working at Snow Base, and I also had the opportunity to go to Gulmarg in India. And I'll show some footage from there. But Gulmarg in India is a ski area that goes, it has the highest gondola in the world, goes to about 13.5, and it's in Kashmir, so it's in sort of disputed area of India. Pakistan is on the other side. It's got the line of control, which is basically the Pakistani army there and the Indian army. And they are looking at each other with bunkers, and they've got machine guns. And they happen to have a ski area there. And you are greeted at the bottom of the lift with guys with machine guns. You get off at the top, and you get off and you get on a ridge, and there's other guys with machine guns. And you look over, and you can see the Pakistanis looking back, pointing their guns at you. And all you want to do is ski. It's an incredible place with huge, incredible backcountry terrain and good snow. I would compare it to what we have here. So I was there for one season, 1995-ish, and I shared the job of snow safety director with two other guys, one guy from California and another guy from the Ruby Mountains. And we went there to sort of run their upper mountain, which had never been open before. They used it for tourists only. And they decided that it was time to open it to skiers. So they hired us to go check it out and see what it was like. That year, similar conditions to actually now. Persistent weak layer. Is there a theme here? And when I got there, so there's three of us. The first guy was there for Christmas. He got to ski the first snow of the year. It was pretty good. Then it was a drought for almost 5-6 weeks, and then it started snowing again right before I got there. The day I got there, they had a backcountry avalanche fatality, and I was sort of handed the reins. Okay, here you go. This is your ski area to run. They didn't have any explosives, and you had huge amount of terrain to cover. My luggage got lost in Delhi airport. So I showed up at the ski area, and I didn't have my skis or my boots, and I had a ski area to sort of take care of. I was like, what is going on here? So I went to the rental shop, and I got a pair of 1980 rear entry boots, and a local guide had some Seth pistols, and he said, here you go. And I'm like, okay, I'll go up on the mountain and check it out. There was one Kiwi that was there from one of the club fields, and he was sort of there to help us out and teach us the things. She's like sort of the handover. He was sick with Delhi belly, so he couldn't get up there. So I had to go up and sort of check out the terrain for myself. And I decided to go down the ridge, the safest ridge I possibly could. And as we were going, I wanted to look at the avalanche that had happened at where that individual had passed away. But as we were going down, we had some wind slabs, and I was like, oh, I'll just go do some wind slab hunting with these guys. And I was with three other Indians, Kashmiris. And as we went down near the bottom, I made one turn and I heard like clapping from these guys. And I had kicked off a hard slab D2-ish, but it ran several thousand feet down. And that was my sort of intro to what's going on in India. We tried to use explosives. We tried to get the Indian government to help us out, but they would not. So we had a cornice at the top that we'd pry off and try and get big balls of snow to go down, big cornices to create avalanches. I do have a video here that'll show you of the terrain in India and an avalanche that happened. And my friend Brian Newman, who I worked with at Eldora and Snow Basin, he is now the avalanche forecaster for this ski area. So you can see the debris here, and then we'll see it's all avalanche path. The whole ski area is a massive, incredible avalanche path. You can see the sympathetic. So the Indian Army base is just off the ridge to the top there. And 2 years after I was there working, they were training in the flats, 4.5, 5,000 vertical feet down in the trees. And an avalanche came through there and took out 15 Army guys. And after that, they decided that it was time to maybe let the guys that were going to be the snow safety people use explosives. And so unlike what we use at the mountains here, they get to use plastic explosive and put it together and throw it. And they have military guys, and they had military guys go with them for the first year or two. They decided, yeah, this is kind of crazy. We'll just let you guys have the explosives and go and use it. And so Brian has been there ever since, and he's their snow safety director. I also am lucky enough to work in the Ruby Mountains of Nevada. And the Rubies, even though they're halfway between here and California, they have more of a continental snowpack. High altitude, 7 peaks over 11,000 feet. And they don't get nearly as much snow as we do. But they do get more and more snowmobilers as their active users. So you've got people in the backcountry there using snowmobiles, and they can get anywhere really, really fast. And in recent times, they're starting to get themselves into a lot of trouble, and we're watching people going into wilderness areas, not caring about things. It is Nevada after all, so people feel like they can do whatever the hell they want. And they get on their snowmobiles and they get in trouble. While I was there, while I've been there working, I've had a close call with clients in the backcountry, and our morning meetings and our discussions and just following protocol saved us that day. So I'm going to show you a video of a piece of terrain that we had some guests caught in that I was there to be a part of. Can't see it from here. All right, here we go. This is Cherry right here. So we ski lots of times where that far avalanche is, down through these cliffs and then out. And there's a reef right here of rocks. That's a trigger point usually. So fairly large avalanche, continental snowpack. So when I was there several years ago, we were skiing this piece of terrain, and I was the third group in there, and the group in front of me was itching to go. And this one guy said, "Hey, I want to just join my friends up top." I'm like, "What did your guide say?" He said, "Well, I should just stick here." I'm like, "Well, the deal is we're doing one run, one person at a time on this slope." And he's like, "Come on, I want to go." I'm like, one guy at a time. That's the deal. And we heard avalanche, avalanche, avalanche on the radio. And the guy before him had skied closest to that reef right there and skied a little bit too far, stepped onto a weak spot, and had the whole thing go. And it was very similar to that video that you just saw. So I think I'd been patrolling for maybe 15 years at the time. And it was the first time I had to use my beacon to go into debris and actually look for someone. It was like, holy shit, this is real. Went out there, there was one guy, I didn't know how many there was because I couldn't see them from the top. I assumed that there was more people buried because of the size of it. And it was the classic, the guy was yelling, "Dig me up, dig me up, dig me up." And I'm like, "No, dude, you're breathing, you're fine." So I just kept going down and looking to the toe because I want to do my due diligence to make sure that no one else was in there. That brings me to another zone, Craigieburn. So we have some people here that just visited Craigieburn for the first time and had a pretty good time. Yeah. We've got Sierra in the house. She worked there this year with me as a ski patroller. So the terrain in New Zealand there at Craigieburn, it's on the South Island. So it's another range, beautiful, beautiful range outside of Christchurch. And it's very, very steep and a lot of avalanche terrain. It unfortunately lives in global warming land like we all sort of seem to. It gets a little bit of rain. And it is known to get massive avalanches and massive storms from the northwest, lots of wind. It is basically a maritime environment, and it is pretty special. Skiing, the club fields in New Zealand is like going back in time and working in a ski museum. You come to these ski areas here, and everything is pretty much, get on a lift, someone else has done things for you. There, you do everything yourself. Rope tows and tractors, and that's how you get up the hill. So most of these ski areas have tractors. A lot of them have been electrified, but the one at Craigieburn, the place I work at, actually is a 1954 tractor that you have to sit on, put it in gear, and start it. And it's pretty awesome. You only have 3 patrollers on a day, and you've got a lot of really cool terrain. The problem with it is, it's 85%, 90% avalanche terrain. The good thing is it's a maritime climate, so usually things settle out pretty quickly. So I'll show you a little video that one of our patrollers took a few years ago, just to give you an idea of what the terrain looks like. And he's sort of the marketing guy, and the ski patrollers are the athletes, shall we say. So just give me a second. So that's the biggest, scariest part of the mountain, is that upper bowl right there. That's Hamilton Peak. That's the highest peak that holds the snow the longest and gets the most wind and gets the least amount of skier traffic. That traverse that you can see there, you can ski to it from the top of the lift. This is the hike that goes between Craigieburn and Broken River. Is Max in here? No. So Max, Powder Mountain represents. Right on the other side is Broken River. I think it's pretty cool. So I work at Snow Basin, and Max works at Powder Mountain. And when we're in the Southern Hemisphere, we have 2 guys that work snow safety right on either side of the ridge down there too. Wild terrain, incredible skiing when it's good. Biggest problem, like I said, is it's 85% avalanche terrain. The best thing about it is, I don't know how, I think 175 was our biggest day last year. So your skier numbers are very, very small. Skiing, maybe, average 30 to 70 people when it's good. When you're unlucky, you'll have over 150 people there. Really, really good terrain, fun skiing. But it also takes me to my first ever avalanche route there. Something happened to me then as well, and I'll show you that after this is over. All right, so this was my first route at Craigieburn. Went en route and went up to the Hamilton Peak, because that's one of our places that we have to check out. And this is Hamish up by the Crown. And I said, I'm going to go down and check out a good spot for you to throw a shot. And as I went down towards a ridge, this medium slab kicked off and went down into the valley. And you can see it goes down all the way down in here. So the avalanche on the left was day one. Day two, we went to clean it up, and the avalanche on the right was day two coming into there. Down in the Craigieburn Range, actually, I heard of something that I'd never heard of before, but they actually had 2 avalanches over the past 20 years that were seismic related. A snowcat driver at night got caught in an avalanche, and he got taken out over one of the cat tracks and taken out. So an avalanche came through at night, and they couldn't figure out what it was that triggered this avalanche. And it just so happened that it was a small earthquake that had happened near Christchurch. And all of us, oh, maybe not all of us, but many of you may have realized that 2-3 years ago, Christchurch had all those earthquakes, and it happened. They had thousands of them. But it is a very, very earthquake-prone country with a lot of faults, and that was something that I had never really thought about. That you could be out on the slopes, and if you are in the terrain, an earthquake can create an avalanche. So I'm going to finish off here with the unfortunate problem with ski accidents, and fatalities in ski areas. And many of you know that at Palisades yesterday on KT22, there was a event that happened. Half an hour after they opened, they had an avalanche, and several people were buried, and one person died. I don't have the full details, but the one detail I do know is that it was the first time that they had opened that terrain for the season. I was fortunate enough to go to the International Snow Science Workshop this fall, and one of the speakers talked about ski area accidents and avalanches inbounds. And in the past 20 years, all the accidents that have happened have basically happened between opening day and January 20th. And they happen when terrain is opened for the first time. And it usually happens within the first 2 hours. It can happen immediately, and it can also happen up to 3 days later. In Taos, a few years back, there were some people that got caught 3 days after the avalanche, after the terrain was open. And so I feel for those guys at Palisades. There's a lot of avalanche workers in the room here, and it's really, really hard and stressful when you're opening something for the first time, because you never know. We do the best we can. We use explosives, we use time, we use air blasts, gut intuition, and sometimes, you put several thousand people on a slope, and they're going to find the spot before, they're going to find that spot. And so we had an avalanche at Snow Basin 6 years ago, I think, 7. And I was the snow safety guy that was in charge for the day, and we were opening No Name for the first time that season. It was a very thin season, and we had kept No Name closed. We were opening terrain around it, but we decided that it wasn't good enough yet to ski and open. And in hindsight, obviously, it was a big mistake. And I think we've learned that anytime we can open terrain, we will open it. The skiing may be really shitty, but the best thing we can do is to get people on the snow so that we can, deal with those facets and those problem layers that are in there. So we decided to open No Name, and I stood at the gate, and I personally high-fived every single person that went through that gate. And there weren't that many of them. It was Marcus was there, and I went to the top and hung out, and I had a meeting to go to, and I went down a run called FTG, and it's amazing. I was having face shots. It was amazing. I was so stoked. I'm like, finally, we got this piece of terrain open. And then my radio went off and said, avalanche, avalanche, avalanche. There's been an avalanche on No Name. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? And I went to the one likely spot I thought it could be, traversed over through the woods, hard left, and then I did see debris. As these things do happen, we were doing a radio upgrade that day, and my radio was not working at all. So I had to use a cell phone, and I was told that there was a definite, fully buried person on No Name. And I don't know if any of you guys have read the Snowy Torrents or know about them, but it's stories about avalanche accidents that have happened over the years. And I honestly felt I was in the pages of the Snowy Torrents. I'm like, I cannot believe this happening. Use your training. What can you do? I saw this massive slide and called on the phone, dispatch. I'm like, this thing goes on forever. Like, do you have any more information for me? Yeah, there's one person that was caught. They're out, but their partner was not. I came around a corner, looked down, and several hundred meters below me in a gully, I saw a group of people. I skied as quickly as I could down there, and they were probing, looking, and it was actually, I said, does anybody see what happened? They're like, and Marcus said, yeah, man, she's right here. And I'm like, where, Marcus? Point directly where? And as he did that, we were pulling out our probes. And I think Brent Hadley had his pole, and he was there. He was going like that. And he's like, I think I struck her. And he hit her on the head. And I dove in, like head first into the snow, and got my hands to the victim's mouth and opened it up. And this victim at the time was blue and almost not breathing. We excavated this person, and the first thing I asked was, who's the president of the United States? And it was Trump, and I was so happy to hear that. She came alive in our arm, and basically in front of us, and we were able to get her off the snow, and we were very, 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 very fortunate. Training kicked in. We did have a witness, and luckily, anytime there is an avalanche, you have a witness. You go to last seen point and you work it. Those guys were so frazzled when the avalanche came by, they thought for sure that the size of the avalanche had taken this person and taken them down the slope. But we went right back to that spot, last scenes point, started probing, and we were, I don't know, stars aligned, but we were able to get this person out of the snow. And I'll never forget that for the rest of my life. Yeah, things happen in snow, and we do the best we can, avalanche professionals, to make it safe for all our guests. And for you guys that like to spend time in the backcountry, there's no better time than the present to have fun and learn and do what you can. So I've got a few just takeaways for those guys. I think that everybody should use ski areas and enjoy getting better at skiing. Like ski areas are awesome. People go out of their way. They get up at 4 o'clock in the morning to mitigate hazard so you can go ski. And, that's where you should get your jumps and all your crazy stuff out. Because if you go into the backcountry, you don't have much of a safety net. You have yourself and your buddies. And on that note, I think that people should just pick really good buddies to go out with, and not too many, right? One or two people. Once you get into crowds, things start happening. Take an avalanche class, have good mentors, and treat the backcountry with a little bit of respect. I think the biggest problem we have in Utah is the availability of skiing outside ski area boundaries, and people just sort of start taking for granted that they could just jump into steep lines just outside the boundary when it's actually a pretty dangerous place. It's one turn outside the boundary and you're totally in the backcountry, a place that hasn't been controlled. And then, I hate to say it, but, stick to lower angle slopes. If you're ski the ski area, ski the steepest stuff there. But if you're going to the backcountry, there's this really steep slope over there, and there's a little mellower slope over there. Pick a little bit lower angle. It's probably going to help you out. And persistent weak layers. You hear about persistent weak layers. There's no reason to go out a day or two after a storm and deal with the beast. Give it time. Listen to the forecast. See what people are doing, and stick to ridges. Don't go into gullies. The day of the avalanche that happened a few days ago, I was with my cousin here from Denmark, and we were skiing No Name, having a really good time. Got on the shuttle, and there was a guy that's like, "Oh man, did you just come out of Hell's?" I'm like, "No, I did not." He's like, "Oh, it was so good in there." I'm like, "Did you stick to ridges?" He's like, "No, I was down in the gully, and I just saw someone." And I was like, that's probably not the most wise thing to be doing. But, people do crazy things and they want to have a good time. And I can't blame people for having a good time. We all want to have the best time when we're in the mountains skiing and enjoying the powder snow that's out there. So, yeah, at that point, I guess I'm done. Do anybody have any questions, any points? Anybody want to bring anything up? Or I'm just going to take questions from the group here if you got any. Well, I wasn't going to talk about it, but Corey Davis is really happy that you did. So last year, I was caught and carried an avalanche, and my airbag saved me. So the story is early season-ish, 13th of December, doing control work on No Name. We were getting a lot of collapsing and a lot of decent-sized avalanches. We fortunately had it open a few weeks prior, and we were getting skiers in that terrain. But we did know that the backcountry was pretty scary and pretty dodgy. We did 3 laps in there. We put many air blasts, and at one point I was with my route partner, and we did feel a huge collapse at one point. And I was like, "This is just not feeling good. Let's go back. Let's throw some more shots. Let's put some more air blasts out there." And we did. We felt good about opening the terrain, and we did open No Name. It was my day off, so I decided to keep skiing. I did not take my, I had not changed back into my civilian clothes. I was still doing a few work runs, checking out the boundary. I had yet been to the boundary and seeing what was going on there. So I think on my second lap after control, I went to the boundary line on the lower pyramids, and then I looked down, and I saw a snowboarder out of bounds, go through the trees, and I said to myself, I did a quick, "You know what? That guy's going to get caught in an avalanche." And I made a very unfortunate to go follow that person, and I don't know what I was thinking, but I think having that on No Name, thinking that, oh yeah, that person, it's not going to be me. Held that person down, gave him a little bit of space, came through the woods, and I was scanning where, and next thing I was in an avalanche, and it carried me through trees, and I hit several of them. I was completely under from the front. I was on my telly skis, and I forward, and I know I was in the washroom. I was just, I couldn't believe it. I had gone into the back just outside the ski area. I was alone. No one knew I was there. I was hitting trees. And the third time I hit a tree, I was like, this is it. This is it. And I remembered I had my airbag, and I pulled. And next thing I know, I was on the surface, and I couldn't believe that that had just happened to me. Yeah. I mean, none of us want to be in an avalanche, right? Ever. But the thing that went through my mind is, I've got 2 kids, a great family, and here I am. This could be it, right? And yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't. I was on my knees, and I got up from that when the avalanche happened, and I saw that the one track from the snowboard had actually been taken out by the avalanche, and I assume that our guest never actually knew that it happened, and I just had made a terrible mistake. I could have actually created the avalanche to have taken him out too, but it was just a split second decision that really was absolutely could have been, the worst consequence ever. I could have been a statistic and not been up here able to share some stories with you guys. So that's what happened to me last year. No Name Pyramids area. More questions? Thanks, guys. Corey, you got anything? What would I do differently? I would have called dispatch, and I would have said, hey, dispatch, there's a guy that's out here. I'm going to keep an eye on him. I'm going to stick on the ridge. That's what I would have done differently. I mean, I had a radio. I had all the rescue gear. And I just made a decision to go out there. It was not the right decision. We follow protocols. I think, we had that incident that happened just on Monday, and we sort of took a step back. We don't go quickly into terrain when we're not involved. Had it been a friend of mine, someone I knew, I would have done maybe the same thing. I would have yelled at him. I don't know, but it was absolutely, at one point I was like, I'm not looking out after myself. I'm looking forward, looking away, and having more self-awareness, I think, is, obviously a huge thing. Last year, on the last storm cycle in April, it started getting warm, and we were the last day Strawberry was open for the season. We were all going to go sort of celebrate up on Demoisy Peak, and I was hiking up, and I was like looking on the backside towards Ogden, and I saw this huge avalanche. And the UAC had been talking about, the isothermic slides that could go, and this thing was, it went maybe 2,000 vertical feet and was several hundred feet wide, maybe 2 or 3 feet deep. And we looked out there and we saw tracks going towards this crown. And we're like, what's going on? And we decided to slow roll that and say, hey, no one called us. We don't know what's going on. They could have kicked it off and then gotten out of that. I tried to get a helicopter to go look. And so what we did was we just stood on the ridge and we looked down with binoculars and, didn't see anything whatsoever. And it was way out in the backcountry, far away from the ski area. And we did find out later that the individuals that had put in those tracks, that they actually did it the day before. They went right to where the crown was, and then they had a bad feeling. And they said, you know what? We're going to get out of this. And then they hiked out. And that's why it was weird tracks. It just didn't make any sense to us. But for us as rescuers, we weren't going to jump in there without having some credible witness, someone seeing what was going on. So that's one of the stories from, just the last cycle from last year. Yeah.
I got one. You said something that resonated really strong with me, and it's like it's not going to happen to me. Right? I think there's a lot of professionals who fall under that like expert label. Like, we know what we're doing. We're taking the proper precautions. How has that changed after your accident? How you look at terrain? How you expose yourself after your accident? Like, I know for me, when I had my accident, I had my partner, my best friend. It changed the way that I look at terrain. It changed the way I approach terrain. Has any of that happened?
Yeah, this year, we as a group have really been pushing, trying to keep terrain skied harder, and like pushing to do that. Maybe something that I think about a little bit more personally. I haven't been. We've been doing control work all the time. Today, I made a decision not to open something because I had a bad feeling. I was like, you know what? There's no reason to be putting. We got really good skiing right now. Let's do it in stages a little bit more. So personally, I'm thinking skiing's going to be good tomorrow. There's no need to be putting myself out there sometimes to rain quickly, just because I can. The storm dictates what, and there's no reason. We've got poor visibility. We've got other pieces to be pushing and putting patrol in a little bit more of a hazardous situation. So yeah, I'm a little bit more cautious. As you can see from some of the stories I said, I've close calls, unfortunately, but they've all informed me on how I interact around me. There's a guy that general manager in Canada from Canada that works at Craig, and he wants us to open a piece of terrain like all the time. Like he wants people in there all the time. And so he wants open is the scariest to me. And so I have to be sort of the reasons like, hey, let's wait a day or two. There's no pushing it. So, maybe yourself would have been way into keeping, going for him. But unfortunately, I think, the adage is you do learn, hopefully, over time. And you need to listen to the snowpack and you don't need to go out there and be a go every single time. Pay attention to what's going on around you, especially when you've got a persistent weak layer. Anybody else? Well, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak here tonight. Appreciate it.